Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fun with Flags. What are you doing?
I'm playing hockey.
You're doing it wrong.
I know. I don't know hockey.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Fun with Flags. I'm your friendly neighborhood soda, joined by 50 shades of learning how to play hockey.
Badly.
You're holding your hands wrong. You're holding it like you're holding a broom. You're supposed to flip your hands around.
Okay, let me try it again.
Jesus.
Yeah. Still not used to walking on ice. You know, living in the desert here, man.
Like this, 50. Like, yes, I have a hockey stick kicking around.
Of course you do. Never expect anything less.
So you're close. Yeah, and then now you take your bottom hand and you flip it 180 degrees. There you go. That's a hockey stance.
Yeah. I want to die now. This hurts.
Oh, my friend, one day I will be taking you to a hockey game.
Oh, one day, no.
Okay, so yes, we were talking about hockey. No, we're not talking about the NHL because that's kind of already been done. Instead, this week I'm going to teach 50 a little bit about this book series that I grew up grew up reading. And that I didn't realize for the longest time they'd actually revived. So once they release them in collections, I'm going to read them. But it's this book series called the Screech Owls series. Basically, the best way to describe this book series is if you take a pee-wee hockey team, which is a hockey team of like 10, 11, 12-year-olds, and you mix it with the Hardy Boys, that type of stuff. Are you familiar with the Hardy Boys?
No.
Okay, so for those who are unfamiliar, the Hardy Boys are two brothers who basically they spent their time solving crimes. Now, the thing is with the hockey team, though, they go to every book takes place in a different city, and they always come across some sort of trouble, and basically they're trying to solve it for themselves type of thing. The original run, which is the one I'm familiar with, has 20 books. 20 books. And they are called, I actually have the list in front of me. So you got book one, which is The Mystery at Lake Placid. Oh, sorry. I should reiterate these. So there's something I should probably tell you. Some of these books take place at either during actual events, actual tournaments, or take place at famous hockey sites. But it's like when we were discussing with Doctor Who the last few weeks. They take a real event or they take a real place or whatever, but they don't really. It's not rewritten history or something like that. It's just they're there.
Filling in the gaps that we don't know.
Kind of, yeah. Like I said, there's 20 books. So the first one is Mystery at Lake Placid, which takes place at the location of the Miracle on Ice in 1980, Lake Placid, New York. The Night They Stole the Stanley Cup, which takes place in Toronto. It involves the theft of the original Stanley Cup, the little one I told you about a while back. The third book is called The Screech Owls Northern Adventure, and the team goes up north to the village of one of their teammates, Jesse Highboy, to visit the Inuit people, and they learn the customs. And there's a character in there who I will be introducing to you in a bit, who throughout most of the books, he's basically like the class clown that always comes through. But in this particular book, he consistently bitches about having to eat all the traditional food until finally he learns the hard way. Book 4 is Murder at Hockey Camp, which kind of, says all you need to know there. Kidnapped in Sweden, again, all you need to know there. Terror in Florida, this one involves them finding, I believe it's a body come out of a shark. The Quebec City Crisis, it takes place at probably the most famous Pee-wee hockey tournament in the world in Quebec City, where like legends were introduced, people who went on to have legendary NHL careers and stuff like that. Book 8, which is probably the most personal, it's called The Screech Owls Home Loss. It takes place in their hometown of Tamarack. There's no tournament. However, one of their players gets injured. Basically, the whole town had come down with a massive snowfall, and it created this condition, this kind of icy condition that is perfect for something called hitching. Now, hitching, you have seen before if you've seen Back to the Future. Hitching, at the very beginning when we're introduced to the town and Marty McFly grabs onto the bumper of a Jeep. And
that's hitching?
That's hitching.
Like hitching a ride.
Basically. But this is done on ice. Unfortunately, one of their players, something bad happens and he gets hit by a drunk driver and he is quadriplegic. And the whole book is trying to figure out who is the one that hit him. Spoilers, it turns out to be one of the nice old men in town. It was a drunk driver. Book 9 is actually the first.
The ones you don't expect.
Exactly. Book 9 is the first one I read. It takes place during the Nagano Olympics of 1998. It's called Nightmare in Nagano. Book 10 is called Danger in Dinosaur Valley. They are in Drumheller, Alberta, which is where some of the biggest dinosaur bones in the world have been discovered. There is a massive dinosaur museum called the Royal Tyrrell Museum. So this book has to deal with, if I'm not mistaken, this one, there's somebody he ends up projecting holograms of dinosaurs in the valley, and people think dinosaurs are actually back. Yeah. The next book goes to the Stanley Cup, which is actually another personal favorite of mine. This one, it takes place in Ottawa. And what happens is their normal coach, he can't make it. So they end up coming across somebody in Ottawa that they take on as a coach, but there's something not quite right about him. He plays with an old stick.
He's an alien. Just kidding.
Close. He plays with an old stick, which is from the early 21st century, with a straight blade. Not hockey blades weren't always curved. He uses techniques that nobody had ever heard of. His skates were really old. And this tournament, the prize is the original Stanley Cup. It's like a mini Stanley Cup tournament. And
so it's a wibbly wobbly timey-wimey thing.
Kind of, yeah. And it turns out the guy that they hired is an actual historical figure. His name is Bad Joe Hall. He was one of the nastiest players to ever play in the NHL. He died during the only year the Stanley Cup final was ever canceled in 1919 because of the influenza that took over the world back then. He was an actual victim of the influenza. Yes, this part's actually true. In the novel, his ghost comes back to coach the team to win the cup he never could win.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a great book. And then next on the list is The West Coast Murders. So it takes place in Vancouver. Again, murders. Really, that's all you need to know about that one. There's Sudden Death in New York City. Again, murders. What can you do?
I thought sudden death is in the sports term for some reason.
This is another favorite of mine. It's called Horror on River Road. This is the only book that actually doesn't involve hockey. This one takes place during the summer, and it involves Canada's actual national sport, lacrosse. You ever heard of lacrosse?
I heard of LaCroix, but...
Okay, so lacrosse is kind of similar to hockey in many ways. You still have the same amount of forwards. You still have the goalie. You still have people with sticks. This one, though, it's a stick with a pouch on the end, and you're carrying the ball, and you're trying to throw it in the net.
Oh, I think I know that.
Yeah, it's not played on skates. It's played like on, in the grass or an artificial turf, whatever. It's kind of like hockey. But that one, the kids want to stay together for the summer, so they convince their coach, who used to be a really good lacrosse player, to teach them lacrosse. So the coach tries to get hold of his old lacrosse coach, but he became a recluse after something happened with his son many, many years ago. His son went missing, and they thought it was the dad that did something to him because there was a dispute or whatever. So players keep seeing the ghosts, and there's something not right. And there's this bear, this local legendary bear, I think it's called Silverback, that's around in the area. And, sometimes the kids have run into the bear. And when one of the final chapters, they're running from the bear and they trip. And it turns out they trip over a human skull. And it turns out the boy who disappeared wasn't killed by his dad. He was killed by this bear. Yeah. And so this story is more about like reconciliation with the past. And it's a really good story. And the beauty about these books is they're barely 100 pages. Like this one, Horror on River Road, is 124 pages. It's like an easy read.
Very easy.
Filled with a lot of humor. Sometimes you might need a little bit of hockey, but it's okay. Next book after that is a book called Death Down Under, which takes place in Australia, which...
If you couldn't tell by the title.
Right. This book, like the thing with hockey in Australia, it's relatively newer. So in this book, I think it's like the first hockey tournament ever held in Australia, or whatever. And they meet this kid called The Wiz, who's like the Australian Wayne Gretzky or whatever. So that's a fun book if you want to learn about Australia. Then there's Power Play in Washington, D.C., which is more like espionage stuff. The Secret of the Deep Woods. Now, this is actually one that I don't really remember. Like the last 3 books 3 of the last 4 books I've only read once, so my memories are a little phasey on them, so I'm not going to talk a lot about them, which is The Secret of the Deep Woods, Murder at the Winter Games, and Attack at the Tower of London. It's basically the same old stuff. But then the final book of the original run, which is another one of my favorites, it takes place 10 years after the events of the original book. It's called The Screech Owls Reunion. I'm just going to read the back a little bit. The Screech Owls are all grown up. 10 years have passed, and Travis, Sarah, Nish, and their friends have gone their separate ways, most of them scattered far and wide from their old hometown. Travis is a teacher. Sarah has become famous as captain of the women's Olympic hockey team. Data, who's the paraplegic, runs a computer business with FOD. Wilson is a police officer. And Nish is in Las Vegas, a valued member of the aerial stunt team, the Flying Elvises. When the people of Tamarack decide to name their hockey facility the Sarah Cuthbertson Arena, it is perfect time for all the old friends to reunite and play an opening night exhibition game. But as the Screech Owls start to return, trouble also comes to Tamarack. The unspoiled town faces disaster in the forming of a new gambling casino, and it seems that the powerful developers will stop at nothing to get in their way, not even murder. It seems like murder is a massive thing in these books. But
Why is that?
I don't know.
Why does somebody have a fetish with murder in a hockey series?
It's easy. Now, before I go more into that one, in the very first book...
Hockey and murder is easy. I mean, case in point, Jason Voorhees.
Oh, yeah, good point. And then Happy Gilmore, who tried to stab somebody in the back with his own skate. That's a real thing. Watch the movie. No, all the way back in the first book, and I'm kind of glad they did this, because like I said earlier, all the books are written from the point of view of Travis Lindsay, who in the first book is the assistant captain, but from every book on, he's the captain. He actually introduces all the characters in the second chapter of the first book, and he does his own scouting report. So I'm going to read all the players. However, not all these players are mentioned throughout most of the books, and by the second book, some of these players have left and joined other teams and what have you. So I'm going to read out to you just the main players. So you have on defense, Wayne Nishikawa, who's one of the funny characters of the book. Quote-unquote, Nish is the steadiest of all the Screech Owls. Not a really fast skater, but a good shot and very good in front of his own net. Clean player, dirty mind. Basically, he's the teenage class clown. Like, he's always trying to get laughs. He's always loud. He's obnoxious. But when it gets down to it...
Always me.
Yeah. Right down to the heart of gold. Sip, you're not as loud and obnoxious as him. Because you're not rude.
Clearly, you do not know me that well.
You're not rude. That's the big difference. Nish is rude. Nish can be really rude.
I can be rude when I want to. I just don't want to when we're doing live shows. That's the thing.
Okay. Larry Ulmer, Nish's usual partner. Slow but a good passer. Lets other teams go too much. Nickname is Data. Obsessed with Star Trek The Next Generation. Claims he can
that makes sense.
Claims he can speak Klingon and sometimes tries. Sometimes plays like a Klingon too.
I was going to ask if he's in any case in any way related to Data from the Goonies, but nope. The Star Trek connection makes all the sense in the world.
Okay, and then forwards, you've got Sarah Cuthbertson, center and the team's best player. Mother skated for Canada in the 1976 Winter Olympics speed skating, and she now teaches power skating. Sarah is determined to play for Canada in the 1998 Winter Olympics. It's like The Simpsons, where time is very fluid. The year women's hockey becomes an official medal sport. Yes, women's hockey did not become an official medal sport in the Olympics until 1998 in Nagano. She's already been asked to play tournaments for the Toronto Arrows and will join their team after Pee Wee. Best skater in the team, great playmaker, pretty good shot, but doesn't use it enough. Team captain. Dmitry Yakushev, who's more of a secondary character, but the book in Russia, he's pretty prominent because he's Russian. First line, right wing. So fast, he sometimes runs right over the puck. If Sarah hits him with a breakaway pass, Dmitry is gone. No one ever catches him, and hardly anyone ever stops him. Great with his feet, which he says comes from playing soccer instead of summer hockey, and idolizes Pavel Bure, who's one of the best Russian hockey players to ever play, and played for my favorite team.
I think you mean football, Mr. Soda, not the other
Okay,
thing.
You know what? My turn.
I guess you're going to use that one.
Yep. Derek Dillinger, second line center, good playmaker with a very good shot. Would have more points if on first line and probably move up once Sarah moves up the aces. Because of strength, is the face-off man used in tight positions. Hooked on video games, quieter and more serious than his father. His father, Mr. Dillinger, is the team equipment manager. And funnily enough, spoilers, the actual antagonist of the first book, because he wants his son to get more playing time. Yes.
What a dad.
Right? And then you've got Fod Nurizadeh, who's third line right wing, first line computer expert, produces printouts of everything from goals and assists to plus, minus, and chances. Muck thinks this is ridiculous. The only numbers that matter are the two they flash up on the scoreboard. Didn't start playing hockey until 9 and improving all the time. Great knack for reading play. And then, of course, Jesse, I'm going to include Jesse Highboy in here, the Screech Owls' newest player, moving into town around Christmas from way up north in James Bay. His dad's a lawyer, and Jesse says he'll be one too, and still be in the NHL as the league's first playing commissioner. A great team player. Cheers, everyone. It needs more ice time. He is one of the central. Characters of the Screech Owls' Northern Adventure. Now, like I said,
I hope you don't expect me to remember all these names.
I did. That's like half of them. That's half of them. Just so you give me context, if I mention their names, but I only read the ones that are generally going to be featured in books. Of course, after the first book, they lost their two goalies, which is why I never mentioned them, and they lost some other players. But by this book, they are introduced to a new player who actually becomes a major part of the team and a major character. Her name is Sam. I almost forgot her name there. She joins the team, but she's kind of like a troubled teenager, comes from a bad home life, very guarded at first. Slowly, as the book series progresses, like that kind of comes down. And then when it comes to the final book, the reunion, it turns out, after school, she had a rough life. She had a kid real young and is like a struggling single mom. But yeah, so on to the Screech Owls reunion. So Nish, he's a crazy Asian character. Something happens to him during an act because he actually made it to the NHL. Something happens to him where he almost loses it, like loses everything. And it ruins his confidence so much that he actually loses all ability to play in the NHL, and that's why he's part of the Flying Elvises, because something happened to him that shook him so hard he didn't think he could ever play again. And of course, the final hockey game of the book, he becomes Old Nish, and I think he wins like the best player of the game. Like, gets all his confidence back. It's sorry.
Good for him.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend reading these books. They're, like I said, they're not that long. There probably will be some talk that you might not understand, but whatever. This book series helped me learn about things from all over the world, because this came out, the first book came out, I would have been 9. So, A Fly in the Apartment?
Yeah.
The first books would have come out when I was 9. So, I didn't really know a lot. So, a lot of this was my introduction to places like London, England, what goes on in Australia. I didn't really know much about, up north until I read The Northern Adventure. Didn't really know much about Nagano until I read the first book that I read, Nightmare of Nagano, which coincidentally came out during the time of the Nagano Olympics. So it's kind of hand-in-hand parcel. I learned more about the sport of lacrosse from reading the Screech Owls books. I learned more about hockey history. Like I said, the Ghost of the Stanley Cup was a great lesson in basically old-timey hockey. And I actually just remembered one thing about the book. Which one was it? The Secret of the Deep Woods. I actually just remembered something talking about hockey. So that story, there is you can tell this is fiction because the player that they're searching for played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who just won the cup in the book. Go figure.
Soda, I think at this point it's a guaranteed.
Toronto hasn't won the cup since the year before my mom was born in 1967. It's pretty valid.
Even I got the joke.
Yeah.
Even I got the joke.
I'm very impressed with you.
No. Too many years of watching John Campia's shows.
Yeah, that's actually pretty fair. He's a massive Leafs fan. No, so what they did is they took, there's the story in the book. There is the rookie player who scored the cup-winning goal, disappears on a fishing expedition. This mirrors something that actually happened in the 1950s. Bill Barilko, he was a rookie in the Toronto Maple Leafs. I want to say 1955, maybe even earlier. I used to know these dates and stuff. You get old, you smoke weed, you forget. Anyways,
As one does.
he scores the winning goal. He goes on a fishing expedition and he disappears. Nobody heard from him. Nobody could find him. Nothing. Fast forward, I believe it's 11 years until the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup for the next time. Like there was an 11-year curse, so to speak, right? Within the week of winning the cup, they found Bill Barocco's remains.
Ugh.
Basically, what happened was the plane went down and, as you can imagine, died in the woods. So the point of that book, The Secret of the Deep Woods, is something similar happens. This player disappears. Everyone knows the story about Barocco, so they're trying to find him. But luckily, they actually end up finding the guy in this one. He didn't succumb to the elements like Bill Barocco did.
So, do they sometimes jump from one year to the other?
So, like I said, it's like The
19...
Simpsons. It's like South Park. It's like those shows where it's fluid.
It always, I understand what you're trying to say, that they always exist regardless of the time in real life. But what I'm asking is, because they're going from one real world event to the other, do they just go from 1980 to 1920?
No. So for the very first book, like I said, it takes place at the location of the Miracle on Ice in 1980. No, that happens at the time the book was written. All the events of the books take place when the book was written. If that makes sense. It just take place at historical events, or in some cases, like the book that takes place at the 2002 Olympics, that was written to coincide with the 2002 Olympics. Same with the Nogano one.
So it's linear.
It's very linear. So the players all stay the same age-ish. It's just the time period is what changes as we progress in real time.
So it's like The Simpsons.
Yeah, like I said, like The Simpsons and like South Park in that sense.
I just thought they cherry-picked moments from hockey history, and it's like, okay, today let's write a story about this famous event, and today we're gonna next day we're gonna write. No, so you're saying that they're going with to bring it back to my topic from next week. It's like if they were written this for the Eurovision.
Yeah,
Eurovision 1990 whatever, 1990 this, yeah.
So the first two books came out in 1995, and then the Screech Owls reunion came out 9 years later.
Okay.
So so the original 20 books came out within a period of about 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, the players stayed the same age. Just if they needed it to be 2001, it was 2001. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the New York book might actually talk about Y2K.
No. Okay.
I'm just gonna take a look, see when that one would come out. Sudden Death in New York, came out 2000. So Y2K was a big thing, right? So the book series was so popular. Just so you know, there's really not many visual aids for these books. I did look.
Books, obviously.
Yeah,
outside of fan art, there's not much you can do.
And I didn't even find that because I wanted to show pictures of all these characters. But they did do a TV show, which I was actually not a fan of. It came out in 2000. It's lasted 2 seasons. 1, it wasn't funny, and 2, this was my first experience with whitewashing, and I didn't even know it was whitewashing at the time. So Nish, who's in the book, his name is Wayne Nishikawa. He is of Asian descent. They changed him to Wayne Nishian in the books, a white Jewish kid who's not funny. They literally took everything about the character, and it's like, okay, it doesn't work like this, and this kid is trying way too hard. Apparently, he won an award for it. I call bullshit.
Rigged!
Yeah, it was... No, it wasn't that good. I think I lasted like 5 episodes before I just gave up. I would rather read the books. It only, like I said, only lasted 2 years. Thank God.
So it sounds like they just took whatever the books were, and they just put it in the laundry and let that colors wash off.
Yeah,
literally whitewashing.
Basically, and it's not all the characters were represented properly and what have you. Just give me a second to bring up the Wikipedia page on that.
Of the show?
Of the show, yeah, they got its own Wikipedia page. Yeah, basically and then they took minor characters in some of the other books and they elevated them to major characters, like the character of Simon Milliken. He's prevalent. He's like a main character. I think 1 or 2 books. Other than that, he's like a background character. Well, he was made one of the main characters of the show.
Adaptation is what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, other than that, it was your usual main characters, Nish. But they even made him the captain in the book in the series, which the character isn't a captain style character. He's not a leader. He leads by example on the ice, but he's not one you want representing the team because he's a goof off. Like he's been kicked out of hockey banquets before for being incredibly rude. Like he's one of those kids, and his mom kind of lets him get away with everything. And then of course they did introduce a character of Samantha, whose name is Samantha McGuire, highly talented girl originally from the West who joins the Screech Owls. The protagonist discovered that her family was forced to move away all the time the older brother committed crimes. This changes when the family moves, settles in Tamarack. Sam, not wanting to abandon her new friends, encourages her brother to change his life. So basically, she's bouncing around from home to home because her brother's a screw up.
Yeah.
You can't find. I'm pretty sure you can find the series on YouTube. If you want to check it out, go ahead. I don't recommend it, but yeah. And then so after 2004, they took a break of 4 years between books. I thought because when he released the Screech Owls reunion, it's like literally it says on the back here, the Screech Owls reunion is the 20th and final book in the Screech Owls series. Lo and behold, 4 years later, they made a few more. Like I said, I haven't read, but I will correct it soon. You've got the Kindergarten Caper, Peril at the World's Biggest Hockey Tournament, Trouble at the Top of the World, Face Off at the Alamo, Panic in Pittsburgh, The Mystery of the Russian Ransom, The Boston Breakout, and the last one written, Reality Check in Detroit, which was written and released in 2015. So I think the book series is finally over.
Never say never.
Never say never. Well, I mean, Roy McGregor, the author of the book, he is getting up there in age, but also he's a fairly known hockey author. He wrote books, The Home Game and The Home Team, which was nominated for the Governor General's Award for Nonfiction, which were both #1 bestsellers. He's also written hockey's best-known novel, The Last Season, and he's a columnist for the Globe and Mail. Well, this was at the time that this book came out, but I mean, like, he was a well-known hockey author, and he decided to write a book series for kids.
Why not? It just happens to involve murder a lot of the time.
Yeah, go figure. And I mean, most of there's also it's either murder or kidnapping.
Yeah. How is this a kid series again?
Sorry?
How is this a kid series?
Right? Right? Okay, you want to know how the very first book, like the very first sentence.
I was setting you up for something. How is this a kid series?
I don't know.
Canadians are weird.
I thought I'm looking because I've got the brand up. I'm like, which one is it? Which one is it?
I guess it's another one of those you can't see it.
Yeah. Okay. So this GIF will actually work for this. So this is literally how the book series starts. This is from the first book. First
I'm
words.
listening.
Wedgie, stop. That's literally how the books start.
Like word 1 and word 2.
Word 1 and word 2. Travis Lindsay could not believe his ears. Wedgie, stop. The big Ford van had been traveling nonstop since the last bathroom break, and Travis had no idea how long ago that had been. He only knew that they finally turned off that boring 4-lane highway, and that far in the distance over the trees, the high green bridge over the St. Lawrence River was now visible. Beyond lay New York State and the road to Lake Placid, finally. Travis had fallen asleep as they drove. He'd had the craziest series of dreams, the kind you always have when half asleep and half awake, head bobbing and eyes drifting. He had dreamed he'd finally found his father's long-lost hockey card collection, the one he searched high and low for without success every visit to his grandmother's old house in the country. He had dreamed he was back in grade 6, that he had failed his year, and that he was failing again because someone had stolen all his workbooks from his locker. And he had dreamed he was taking a face-off in the Olympic Center at Lake Placid, the American Stars and Stripes and the Canadian Maple Leaf flying overhead, 2 anthems echoing in the rafters, in the stands his mother and father, his teachers, his friends from school, NHL scouts, Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe, Alexei Yashin and Paul Kariya, Eric Lindros, the Hockey Night in Canada crew, and just as the referee held out the puck, Travis looked down at his circle and saw that he had forgotten to put on his skates. His toes were blue, his feet were wiggling and slipping on the ice surface, but no one else had noticed. The referee's skates dug in, sending ice chips flying. The other center's skates kicked in toward the circle, the skate heading toward Travis's toes with more sharp blades and a Swiss Army knife. No! no! Travis had woken up in the van shouting, and everyone on the Screech Owls had laughed and slapped at his shoulders and the back of his head. He had refused to tell them what had scared him. Let them think whatever they wanted. It was a ridiculous dream anyway. He'd never forget his skates. Besides, he wasn't even a center. So they introduced the characters more, and what turns out is the wedgie stop is where they get out, they stretch their legs, they can pull a wedgie if they want, or they and then Mr. Dillinger each gives them $5. He's like, go spend it on something stupid. Basically, just make the whole trip fun, and that's kicks off the books.
Nice way to start. Lots of words I didn't understand the meaning of, but okay.
Yeah, as soon as I got to the names, I'm like, 50's not going to have an idea who any of these people are.
That's why you read the characters up first.
Well, no, when I got to Wayne Gretzky and Bobby Orr and Gordie Howe, I'm like,
I know Wayne Gretzky because you keep mentioning his name, but none of the other people.
Gordie Howe was Wayne Gretzky before Wayne Gretzky. He played the longest in the league. He started in the 1940s. Yes, 40s. His last official NHL game was 1980.
And this Wayne Gretzky person, is he like, to put it in context I would understand, the Dan Murrell of hockey, of Canadian hockey?
That's a pretty good way to put it. I would say that, yeah. He's not someone, Wayne Gretzky, you look at him, you wouldn't think he was the greatest hockey player in the world. There was really nothing special about him. He was tall, he was average height, average build, didn't really have a lot of muscle mass. However, by the time his NHL career ended 20 years after it started, so he's played from 1979 to 1999, he held and currently holds 25 years later the records for the most. He's a part of 60 or 61 NHL records. He still holds the records for most goals in a career, most assists in a career, and most points in a career. Now, the fun fact about that, you take away all of his goals, bring it right down to zero. He still has more assists than the second player with the most points in NHL history.
Okay. Still don't understand most of what you just said, but okay.
This is the goal gets credited to the person who puts the puck in the net. Yeah. The assist gets credited to the people who get him the puck. The last two people to touch the puck before the goal scorer.
Yeah, to pass it over to him.
Yes, which means Wayne Gretzky has assisted on more goals than anyone has ever scored points. Think about that for a second.
Respect.
Yeah, so there's a reason. Like, he was the first player in NHL history that when he retired, the whole league retired his number. Nobody's had that honor since.
Yeah, so again, putting it in the context that I can understand, he's had more supporting actor Oscars than people having best actor Oscars.
Yeah, that's a good way. That works.
Hasn't been done, but it's still theoretically, that's what I mean.
The people who get the assists are the ones who support the goal scorers. Sometimes the supporting the assist people who do the assists do all the work, and the goal scorers is there for the easy tap in. But hey,
to put the cherry on top,
basically. But yeah, that's who Wayne Gretzky was. I unfortunately didn't see Wayne Gretzky play live until the last 2 years of his career, so I didn't see the magic live. But within the first 10 years of his career, he'd already set the all-time record for points in a career. Within his first 10 years. He's the only player to ever get 200 points in a season, and he did it 4 times. Only one player has come close, and he ended with 199.
Oof.
And because 1 point, and because it took place in an era where the rules were a little looser, there was more goals scored in a game, you cannot get those numbers anymore at all. Like, it's going to be near impossible for someone to get 200 points.
So that's a record that'll never be beat.
More than likely. His goals record might actually fall within the next year or two. That one actually someone might take.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. But no, most of his records will never be touched.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, well, I wasn't expecting this to be a long episode because, like I said, I read as many books as I could. But trying to do research on them on the internet, there's not that much. Basically, everything I told you was off the top of my head, was from memory.
Well, now you know how I feel when we do this show.
Like, no joke, I was trying to find the original covers online so I could use them. Half the time they use the new covers, which is just a black background with some doodling. They're not as good as these. Like, these original covers are great.
They put work into these covers.
Yeah, like Horror on River Road, Screech Owls Home Lost.
Like Are these like drawn?
Yeah, these are all drawn.
I mean, that's putting hard work into it.
Yep. Yeah, this is a really good one because, like I said, it doesn't take place. It takes place in the hometown. The only hockey they play is a game called shinny, which is just like pickup hockey. You just get together with a bunch of people on a river that's frozen over, and you just play.
Someone's like, it's play for fun.
Basically,
Don't play for points.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't see that many people doing that anymore, which is unfortunate. Like, I mean, they probably do on the lakes out here and stuff, but there's just something about getting together and playing a game of shinny. It's just like you're playing hockey. There's not many rules. You're just there to have fun and try to be as goofy as possible. That's the time you try the trick shots.
Yeah, I think people in this day and age are forgetting what fun is supposed to be.
Yeah. I was actually just thinking about something. So, I had said that there was one player who would more likely break Gretzky's goal record. Okay. I want to show you a goal that he scored. I think it was in either his rookie year or his second season. It is quite the goal. It scored. His name is Alexander Ovechkin. He plays for the Washington Capitals. He's currently their captain. This is the goal he scored. This is how I'm going to end the episode.
First for Wayne Gretzky's Coyotes.
Okay, so Ovechkin is number 8. That's him right there.
I'm just keeping my eye on the puck.
Outside, and Brendan Woods
as I can.
For Washington.
So that's him. That's Ovechkin coming down the ice.
Alexander Ovechkin curl and drag to the back end. He scores!
Wow. I didn't even see it.
Right?
I thought he did it all the other.
I didn't even see that.
Watch it in slow-mo.
Prettiest goal of the season.
Oh, and
goal number 32.
Gone against the team that Wayne Gretzky was coaching. That's Wayne Gretzky.
One's going to see how this one went in. A spectacular display of stick handling on close down, going against the D. He's on his back and he slides it into the wide open net on the backhand to boot. Here he is, taken down. Look at him get the puck and just fire it.
Wow.
To the outstretched arm of the goaltender Boucher.
Wow.
That's the guy who's going to take Gretzky's goal scoring record, and I can't think of a better player.
It reminds me of something that happened years and years ago, like in an Israeli football player, the real football, not the other thing.
When you say football, I know what you're talking about. Okay,
I know, but I still gotta do it for the joke. Come on. Okay, so
I don't like this thing, and here's what I'm doing with it.
I'm sorry.
You don't like the joke?
Go ahead. I'm just busting your balls.
You don't like the joke?
I'm sorry. It was a joke.
Okay, fine. It was a joke on top of a joke. Okay, so there's this one, the Israeli football player. I think he was like 18 or 19 years old. The average age for real football players. I don't know how old the Americans pick their players, but this is around the same age of starting in the big leagues. I think. I don't know. I don't know sports. But like he was standing like a couple of yards away from the opposite team's goal. Someone kicked the ball right up into like really, really high off the pitch. I didn't really know the sports terms for this, but like he saw the ball landing towards his direction, and what he did was he did a backwards somersault, and with his foot during the backwards somersault kicked the ball into the goal, and even the goalie was like, What?
In soccer, it's referred to as a bicycle kick. I saw someone try that when I played Little League soccer, and he actually tore the ligaments in his knee. I've seen that play happen. Hold on, I was trying to find some strange NHL goals to show you, but they're all like compilation videos.
Wow.
So no.
And ain't nobody got time for that.
Oh, you know what? I will show you one of the best Pavel Bure goals. The player that one of the players idolizes.
One of the players from the book?
One of the players from the book. Puck off skate. So Pavel Bure is most famous for playing on my favorite hockey team, the Vancouver Canucks. So this goal would have happened in 1996. When this happened, it was just like, holy crap. The puck is in his feet. That's what you got to remember. The puck is in his feet.
The dog is in the putti.
But Donato pinches in and keeps it in for Tocchet in behind the Vancouver net. Can't quite get to the puck. Adam Oates did. He played it to Bork, and it got by him again. Bure hustles after it. He's got a breakaway over the blue line. Cuts to the net. What a play! Bure scores!
Okay, so I'm going to try to find a close-up of it. Now watch this.
First goal on home ice since he's returned, and it goes on the highlight reel, I'll tell you that.
He drops the puck back with back foot, and he kicks it
clear
forward.
from the blue line in, the Boston blue line. Put it off the skate, kicked it up to the forehand, and then put it behind the goaltender. Spectacular goal by the Russian Rocket. Canucks lead 1-0.
Yeah, my favorite. Whoop, definitely get rid of that. My favorite.
No one's meant to see that.
No. Well, it's the Mega Powers. I mean, that's history right there, but not Canadian history. So that brings an end to the Screech Owls, because like I said, besides reading the book, there's not a lot out there on the novel series.
I was hoping we could talk some plots or storylines, but I mean,
if I'm being honest, the books aren't that. Like, I basically told you the plots.
Okay,
they're not long books. They're at most. I think the longest one I've seen is 150 pages. It's a 2-hour read.
Okay, cool.
So I mean, I basically told you the plots. It's something happens, the players try to figure out, and then it ends in a big hockey game. That's basically the layout of every book.
Canada.
Yeah. So next week, I'm actually going to take a little chapter for something you did not that long ago, and I'm going to do Canadian snack food.
Ooh, cool. Me likes.
I get paid next weekend, which means I can actually have visuals. Yeah.
And then the week after that, we're back to me?
We're back to our normal schedule.
Okay, good, because I already have a topic picked out.
Perfect. So yeah, where can everybody find you while I'm searching for Canadian snacks?
Yeah, you can find me on my YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek. It's going to take me the whole rest of the episode to figure out how to do this, but yeah, 50 Shades of Geek, my own YouTube channel. I upload weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way to 2022. I just wrapped up the William Hartnell era, so go ahead and check all of that out. I also did a couple of Eurovision-themed stuff last week for reasons that you may have seen in the previous episode. Speaking of previous episode, this show, Fun with Flag, I do with this wonderful gentleman, here's Mr. Soda, every Thursday, and also every Monday I have this guy on all month, it seems like, on The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I talk about Doctor Who, the greatest show in the galaxy. So thank you for watching, if you have.
And I do plan to do a little bit, do the homework I was assigned. So can I just ask, without going into details, why is that a requirement for the episode? Like, are we discussing?
What?
Well, you wanted me to watch the Colorized Gunslingers.
Well, I mean, we can talk off camera.
Okay. Gotcha. That was more for recreational talk, not.
You always do that.
Well, I misunderstood. I thought I had to watch it for the show.
We'll talk off camera. We'll talk off camera.
Okay.
In the green room.
Yes. And then as for me, you can find me on my personal Instagram, soda_the_saxman. You can find me on the shows that 50 had mentioned here on the Northern Entertainment Group. You can also find me on my occasionally watching Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown over the Hotel Network. And then coming up, so we're recording this on Sunday the 21st. So on May 22nd, myself and Dagan, we are officially launching our wrestling channel, So Dagan Wrestling. So definitely go check that out. We're going to be doing our first live show episode tomorrow, where we talk about everything that's going on in the world of wrestling. So, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so on behalf of myself and 50, don't forget to subscribe, not just to our channel, but to all these glorious channels over here: Multiverse of Geekdom, Galaxy Geeks, Movie Lovers Unite, Something to Talk About, 50's channel, 50 Shades Geek, of course, the Northern Entertainment Group, the Midnight Cinema, and A-Town Reviews. So on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for watching, and join us next week as I release, I guess, my inner glutton and show 50 Canadian snacks. So y'all have a good weekend, folks, and we will see you next week. And I will hopefully try to teach 50 some hockey.